Welcome to Solving One-Step Equations. The subject area for this enhanced podcast is math, specifically Pre-Algebra and Introductory Algebra, and the grade level is Math 65. By listening to this podcast, you will learn what an equation is and then be introduced to how to solve simple one-step equations. Equations are sometimes referred to as a number sentence with an expression on either side of the equation. Equations are different from expressions in that expressions do not have an equal sign. Another difference between an equation and an expression is that we solve an equation, but we evaluate an expression. Equations are also referred to as two expressions joined by an equal sign. As you can see, I have listed some examples of equations. These include 2 plus 5 equals 7, 2 plus 5 equals 3, and x plus 6 equals 13. You may be wondering about 2 plus 5 equals 3. We'll address that in a moment. As you may have already noticed, equations can be true, false, or neither true or false. Let's look at these examples. We know that 3 plus 2 equals 5 is true because 3 plus 2 does equal 5. However, 7 minus 2 equals 4 is a false equation because 7 minus 2 is 5, not 4. X plus 6 equals 13 is an example of an equation that is neither true or false because we don't know the value of x yet. When solving equations, we look for the values of the variables that make the equation true. Do you remember from grade school when you solved problems like box plus 6 equals 10? Those were equations, you just didn't realize it. What does the box equal? I hope you're thinking 4. How did you come up with that answer? The goal in solving equations of any level is to get the variable on a side by itself. The variable needs to be completely alone on one side while the numbers or constants are on the other side of the equal sign. To do this, we use a concept called opposite operations. For example, the opposite of add is to subtract, the opposite of subtract is to add, the opposite of multiply is to divide, and the opposite of divide is to multiply. These are used to solve equations. To solve equations that involve addition or subtraction, we use the addition principle. What the addition principle tells us is that we can add or subtract any number as long as it is the same number from both sides of the equation and it does not change the equation. In other words, what you do to one side you have to do to the other to keep the equation balanced. For the equation x plus 6 equals 13, we ask ourselves, where is the variable and what is being added or subtracted from the variable? In this example, 6 is being added to x. The opposite of adding 6 is to subtract 6. We subtract 6 from both sides, and this gives us the answer of x equals 7. I'd like you to try x minus 4 equals 10 on your own paper. To solve equations with multiplication and division, we use the same opposite operations. The multiplication principle tells us that we can multiply or divide an equation by the same number, and as long as we do the same thing to both sides of the equation, it keeps the equation balanced. So, for the example, 5x equals 25, x is being multiplied by 5. The opposite of multiply is to divide. Therefore, if we divide both sides by 5, we get that x is 5. Just remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to both sides in order to solve the equation. Try 6x equals 24 on your own paper. Did you get the correct answer? Hopefully you have learned a great deal about solving simple one-step equations. Get this process down pat and solving more complicated problems will come much easier.